My cousin sister Rambanai came back from America with 2 suitcases crammed with 2 tight clothes in vivid shades of pink and a new accent. The clothes eventually faded from frequent washes with cold power and from hanging in the harshness of the Harare sun, but the accent did not. Her new voice rose and fell in our house as she talked of her life in the States, the problems she had juggling her 9-to-5 job with an insurance broker in downtown Dallas and a hectic social life, the leaky faucet in her duplex. Take this route, she said. She pronounced it route instead of route. And our housemaid, Sisi Desi, said to her friend Memory, the housemaid from next door, that Rambanai sounded just like someone on television. As the daughter of my father's younger brother, my uncle, Babamnini Ba Thomas, Rambanai was my sister in Shona, my cousin in English, and in Shonglish, my cousin's sister. Both she and her older brother Thomas lived outside the country, but only she came back to bury their father. Instead of coming, Thomas wired 750 pounds through Western Union from Manchester, England, where he lived. 5 years, 5 whole years without coming home, not even to bury a father, huh? Said my uncle's wife, my uncle's second wife. She was the mother of my twin brothers, Tadiwa and Tadiswa, but not Thomas and Rambanai. Is this the behavior of a responsible son? Hanti and Evanj, is it not he as the new head of the family who is supposed to be here today? For all that she complained, it was the money that Thomas sent that enabled the family to bury my uncle in the splendor of the Paradise Peace casket, a gleaming white coffin with golden handles and a gold frame on the surface, and into which my aunt put a photograph of my uncle in his University of Leeds graduation cap and gown. When Vatete Mai Majita complimented my aunt on the magnificence of the coffin, she blew her nose and swallowed back a sob to say, "It is a casket, Vatete, not a coffin, a casket." She covered her face in a handkerchief and began again to sob softly into its black folds. Rambanai had not been particularly close to her father. His forbidding exterior made it impossible for anyone to feel any real warmth toward him. When I was a little girl and my uncle's first wife was alive, she had a picture of Jesus on their living room wall. His limpid blue eyes would follow me everywhere. Under the flowing hair, the all-seeing eyes, and the pink and blue robes of Jesus were these words: I am the silent guest at every meal. I am the silent witness to every action. I am the silent listener to every conversation. The menace in the words alarmed me, and sometimes after we had visited their house in Mount Pleasant, I woke up screaming that Jesus was in the room and he could hear me breathe. As the picture hung above his favorite seat, I came to associate the omnipotence of Jesus with Bamnin Ba Thomas, who sat there without talking, never once laughing in all the time that I knew him, only responding with a grunt when we clapped our hands to him in the traditional way and asked after his health at the beginning of every visit. The only time he said anything of any length was at the beginning and the end of each term, when he sat us down, Rambanai, Thomas, my brother Godi, and me, and gave us all a lecture. It was always the same lecture. In his deep, slow voice, he called us by name, one by one, from the eldest to the youngest. Godfrey, Thomas, Matilda, and you, Rambanai. You must understand, children, he said, the value of education. Every parent hopes that his children will be better off than he was. Every parent looks to education to achieve that hope. Remember, children, the value of education. This was the speech he gave, and nothing beyond this, so that when I saw him lying in his coffin during the body viewing on the night that he spent on top of the coffee table in the living room, it seemed as though it would be just a matter of minutes before he raised himself to talk about education, before sinking back into his usual silence. Still, he was Rambanai's father, and I expected that she would be grieved at his passing. A father was a father after all, even one as unsmiling as Bamnin Ba Thomas. I did not expect, however, that she would send wails across immigration and customs as soon as she saw us. We looked down at her from the observation platform at the airport with my parents, my aunt, and small cousin brothers. We saw her disembark from the airplane, cast her face toward us, and break into a loud keening that startled the cluster of white visitors waiting in line immediately in front of her. She wept so loudly in the long, slow queue to get her passport stamped that one of the government officials ended up taking her by the arm and fast-tracking her away from the tourists. In the kitchen, our housemate Sisi Desi whispered to Vatete Maimashita that Rambanai looked just like her idea of someone who had come from overseas. Having been in America for 5 years without coming home, she was the star at the funeral. Everyone wanted to look at her. She would have given the mourners much to talk about, but she gave them more than they expected. She put her hands to her head. She made as though to jump into the grave. She cried out for her father in a voice hoarse with weeping. Hi, haiwa, Vatete Maimashita said. We all know how hard it is to lose a father, Anditi, but surely this is too much. Where have you seen a daughter weeping more than a widow? At my uncle's funeral, a special eye was kept on his widow, as tradition demanded, both to give comfort and for fear that she might do herself harm. The consensus at my uncle's funeral was that a particularly vigilant eye should also be kept on the daughter, so that a younger aunt and I were given the duty of staying with Rambanai. In the middle of the night of the day that we buried my uncle, I woke up to the sound of a commotion. I looked on the bed and got up when I saw the depressed space where Rambanai's body should have been. I followed the voices outside. I found Rambanai standing in a knot with other women. Their eyes were on my uncle's widow. 2 women held her arms as she wailed with her face to the heavens, the Zambia cotton wrapper that was normally tucked securely around her waist folded into a thick rope around her neck. Sunga, I will do it. Leave me, leave me. There's no reason for me to live, she cried. Waenda, murume wangu waenda. She tried to hang herself off that tree there, Rambanai said. She pointed at a peach tree with long, thin branches, just barely able to support the weight of its own fruit. My aunt was persuaded to go back inside, and after this excessive, if belated, outpouring of grief, wept only when the new mourners arrived. Nor did Rambanai equal her performance at the graveside. It was only later that I understood that Rambanai had been in mourning not only for her father, but also for the death of her American dream. After the funeral, Rambanai stayed a week, 3 weeks, 1 month, 5 months, 11. She stayed so long that the question, vakadi veku states, moved from vachadzokera riniko veku states to kuti vachadzokera veku states. Should not your cousin sister have gone back to Dallas by now? My boyfriend Jimmy asked me. If she stays any longer, she will be here for the Krova Goa ceremony. He was referring to the ceremony that was performed exactly a year after a person's death. In the 11 months that followed Bamrin Baba Thomas's funeral, Rambanai always seemed to be on the verge of departure. She shopped for the many friends she had left behind in America, packed her suitcases, and did the rounds to say her goodbyes. But to hear her tell it, the fates had other plans. Just when she had packed and said her goodbyes, just when we thought that now the time had come to take her to the airport, she would tell us about another mix-up with her visa or a ticketing problem that involved Delta, Air Zimbabwe, and American Airways. I have confirmed my onward connection from Atlanta to Dallas, she said. The flight from Joburg to Atlanta is sorted. The problem really is with Air Zim. From now on, I will fly only South African Airways. Rambanai needs to take 3 airplanes just to get to America. I heard Vatete Maimashita explain to our housemate, Sisi Desi. And Sisi Desi burnt the meat, I suspect, because she got carried away by her contemplation of a journey so long. And when Jimmy said he knew someone who worked at Air Zimbabwe, Rambanai gave a small, tight smile and talked about Dallas. Our housemaid, Sisi Desi, worshipped Rambanai and could not get enough of her stories. America is the land of opportunities, Sisi Desi, Rambanai told her. There you can be anything you want, anything at all. Someone like you can be a housemaid today, and before you know it, you have your own TV show. Musadaro, Sisi Desi said in admiration. It is true, Rambanai said. You can be anything at all. I overheard Sisi Desi telling her friend Memory, the housemate from next door, that in America you could be anything at all that you wanted. You could be a dancer and a poet, all at the same time as you worked in the office. If I was in America, Sisi Desi said, I would have my own TV show by now. Musa Daru, said Memory. It is true, Sisi Desi said with authority. In America, you can be anything you want, anything at all. Thank you.